Yeah, that was a great movie. Highly recommend. Mhm.
Yes, yeah. Well, why don't I tell you about it?
Do it.
Um, so like I said, watch the film. I will have spoilers. I'm gonna tell you what happens in the film, but even still, I will say like there's no like twists, right? You
Mhm.
get what you get and you won't be upset because it is just really it's a fun film. And a lot of those like it's really more emotional. So like as you're watching it, you get really connected to these characters. That's what you're gonna find value in. And also like the monster is fun. It's like
Mhm.
such a creative, like spooky thing that like just watch it. You're gonna have a fun time. So, Slashback is from 2022. It's brand new, and it is about when Micah and her ragtag friends discover an alien invasion in their tiny Arctic hamlet. It's up to them to save the day. Utilizing their makeshift weapons and horror movie knowledge, the aliens realize you don't mess with girls from Pang. It's
Mhm.
directed by Nyla Inuk, and um, at one point they even say that they're like, "You don't mess with like no one messes with girls from Pang," which I really loved. That like that was there because it very much is like this group of girls fighting back. They slash
Mhm.
back, slasher, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, it was like the director said it was like a working title, and she's like, let's just, that's what happened, and it's cute.
Mhm. It's definitely cute. I agree.
So Slashback is part coming of age, part John Carpenter's The Thing, with a sprinkling of Attack the Block and all heart. And it follows a band of plucky teens in Pangnirtung in Inuit hamlet on the Canadian territory of Baffin Island. And our indigenous heroines are tasked with protecting their home from an invading force in an alien invasion with gross, fidgeting, not moving right imposters.
Mhm.
It's very much I put in my script cue, he's wearing an Edgar suit,
Uh-huh.
joke that I love to make whenever we talk about imposters wearing
Yep.
people's skins. You
Yep.
remember Men in Black?
Yeah, sugar water.
Sugar water. Love it. I don't know why that's one of my favorite things for forever. We should do Men in Black. Anyway,
Yeah, it's a fun movie.
talk about identity, right? Like when you
Yeah.
find out that different people who were aliens the whole time, like in their
Yeah.
lore, that's um, so that's what the monsters are. Like if think about uh D'Onofrio as the Edgar suit. That's kind of
Mhm.
what they look like, but like worse.
Yeah, it's definitely
They're
worse,
falling
but
apart. It's definitely worse.
yeah.
But to kind of get you there,
Mhm.
the film opens with a white man and he's doing some ice science,
Yeah.
and he's got like a pole and like snow and some data. I don't know what he's doing. He's doing something. He's like getting samples. I saw a
Yeah.
video recently where they're like, "We found the oldest ice," and I'm like, "But why? Why do we need to?" I think
What's
that's
in the
that's
oldest
cool.
ice? What's in it?
They're like, "Look how far it goes down." I'm like, "Yeah, leave it alone. What are we doing down there?"
But the Avatar, Gabe.
I guess
I
I
know, I'm
don't get
kidding with you.
it.
I'm
Well,
rewatching the Avatar show, so that's
yes,
that's where my brain
we
is.
have to get him. He's the
Yeah.
only one who can
Yeah.
save us. Um, so this white man in the Arctic, near this Inuit place, hears a curious sound before promptly exploring in a way that would make Ripley really mad, and
Mhm.
it gets himself face hugged like
Yep.
immediately, and I was like, "What protocol?" Anyway,
He it's
this
because
is
he went over and was, like, touching it. I was like, "You don't
yeah.
stop." Obviously, you would do that, but stop it at the same time.
Yeah, it starts out where you're like, "Okay." What I really did appreciate that it kinda I was expecting it to start a little bit more similarly to the thing with, like, a dog coming up, and it's like, "Ooh, is it a
Mhm.
real dog?" So I like that it instead took, like, a turn into Alien. So I
Mhm.
was like, "Oh, of course." So very fun. There's a lot of, like, nods to, other horror films. Even the monster, like, the wearing the face reminded me of Michael Myers because
Yeah.
that's literally his mask is a human face, right? So
Mhm.
there's all these little things where I'm like, somebody really loves horror.
Yeah.
That's super fun. So this is our introduction to the monster under the ice, and it's something sinister and quite hungry. And when we first meet the girls, they are like any other, stuck in that in-between space of growing up, not quite a teen, but not a kid either. And the girls gather together and decide to go hunting on the mainland, which you learn isn't really like a thing they should be doing. Like
Yeah.
all the adults are like, "Hey, where are you going?" Um,
Yeah, they're not
Micah,
supposed to go by themselves, exactly. Yeah.
yeah, because they are still kids. They're 14, but
Mhm.
when you're 14, you're
You're
like
still a
14
kid.
going on 20, you know?
Yeah.
Um, like, I'm an adult now.
Yeah.
Um, so Micah, the lead of the troop, grabs a rifle casually and heads for her family's boat. And following close behind, we have Uki, who's the rambunctious kid with a wild side, Lena, the quiet and sweet friend who's definitely going to grow into the mom friend, and Jessie, who's down to earth and level headed. And if you're watching, I'm dressed as Jessie, and Kat is Micah.
Mhm.
Micah's younger sister, Aju, sneaks her way over as well, showing herself to not be someone easily left behind. Um, she's also like 7 going on 20.
Yeah.
She just wants a cell phone, this poor kid.
Yeah.
So she rides her bike over because you can also get to the mainland from just riding. And she arrives just in time for all hell to break loose. So the girls are practicing aiming, they're sharing like horror stories, like ghost stories,
Yeah.
in this very casual way before Aju arrives and she begins yelling for them to get their attention. And one of the girls spots a polar bear in the distance and takes aim. But this polar bear is a little weird. Okay,
Yeah.
its movements are all fidgety and like glitchy, even, and definitely not right. And Uki, always seeking to prove herself, takes aim and fires, only for the bear to set its disturbing eyes upon little Aju. And it charges forward and jumps on Aju, covering her in blood, this like
Yeah.
black gooey blood, as
Yeah.
Uki struggles to reload and take aim. And just in time, they're able to shoot it and run back to their home. They do find that the blood that is on Aju isn't easily removed. It's just like settled there.
Yeah.
That's something that comes back later. Anyway, um, they all agree that something bizarre was going on with this bear, and they hint at it being a Jirak or a Pilut. Sorry, I do not speak this language natively, or at all. So, but the Drak and this other creature are like a part of Inuit folklore of these monsters that are kind of like the boogeymen who steal children. So the Drak are
Yeah.
shapeshifting creatures who kidnap children and abandon them in places that are hidden away and not easy to find. And Kat's going to go over some of those other spooky creatures in their section, um,
Yeah.
including a literal tickle monster.
I don't have
Yeah.
the tickle monster in my section, and I'm sorry, but it is a good one. I saw that one and I was like, "That's great." A lot of them involve stealing children, unfortunately, which does make sense considering what's happening
But
all
that
over.
happens, like, that's
Yeah.
in a lot of different, like, uh in a lot of, folklore is, like a
Mhm.
lot of it is just, like, kids should be good, and if you're not, something's gonna steal you.
That's
Um,
true, that's true.
since the tickle monster's not in your section, I'm gonna mention it. It's called a
Okay.
mahahaha.
Oh, okay, it is, and I just didn't know it was the tickle monster. Okay, continue, sorry.
Anyway,
It
it is
doesn't
a
even mention tickling in mine, so you tell us what this version that you have
of the so what I found the mahaha be, and I will include an image that was shared because it's got these long fingers, it's creepy, is described as a grotesque demon who is infamous for tickling people to death with its shockingly frozen touch.
beautiful.
It's called mahaha. I think that's amazing. Um, that's why I was like, I really want to do a folklore section or a
Mhm.
series because I'm sure we will find that most of them are like to scare kids into behaving. Like La Llorona, she's just stealing
Yeah.
kids.
I also just like as a warning that there are things
Krampus.
out there that aren't
Yeah,
good.
listen
Be
to
safe, stay in your home,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. Don't go where you're not supposed to go. Listen to your parents.
Mhm.
So while they're kind of, pondering if it was a drug, a bunch of kids in Pung begin to gather around to hear the story of the group's run-in with a real life drug before they are unfortunately, though unsurprisingly, accosted by a police officer. Which really was this is where it was giving me the Rhymes for Young Ghouls vibes, because it definitely was like in Rhymes for Young Ghouls, if the police showed up for something like this, they could take you away to one of the schools. And so that's scary. Luckily, a local woman, and also that police officer was just like a white dude, like out here causing trouble. But luckily, a local woman who is also an officer comes to their rescue, which is nice.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, it could have turned into a
Yeah.
different kind of movie.
Mhm.
And we get to spend more time with the girls, the girls, and learn about their lives and personalities. Pang is small, and everyone knows everyone and their expectations for these girls. So Lena ends up being grounded for going to the mainland. Um, Clearly, they were not allowed to go there, right?
Mhm.
You get grabbed, right? Uki is off wandering after being dared to return to the bear attack, and she goes in search of Aju's bike and for vengeance. Jesse, we learn, has a crush on a local boy who's this like teen dream. His name is Thomasy. Um, he's got like the flowing hair. It's definitely giving like Jonathan Taylor Thomas, but like
Mhm.
cuter. And he's hosting a party at his house while all the parents and adults in Pang go to a super fun line dancing event.
Mhm.
It's like, okay. Or square dancing. They're square dancing. And during these interactions, we learn about the complicated challenge of identity that Micah is struggling with. Her father has taught her to hunt and wishes to instill Inuit values in her, only for her to push them away. Like, she definitely wants to be like a modern kid. And I feel like any story where we're talking about like second generation, like immigrants and things like that, or even just like contemporary women who
Mhm.
is in this like small town, you're kind of fighting against tradition because to that it's like holding you back, right? Like you're
Mhm.
there's a lot of complicated feelings that go with that. So she's struggling with that. And when she goes to this party with her friends and Thomasy asks about the food she likes, she shrugs off at the any and even shows distaste for any of the traditional food and instead prefers KFC. Right?
Mhm.
She makes a terrible comment about the Inuit fish art in Thomasy's house, explaining that it's tired and replicated everywhere. She's just like, people just, draw a fish and then put it up somewhere, blah, blah. It's so tired. Uh, Thomasy's like, my mom made that.
Yeah.
So sad. And she
She's
gets
just
really
too cool for school. She's trying
yeah,
really hard to be cool.
yeah. And of course, like, Jesse's kind of, like, upset about that because it looks like she's trying like, she's f not flirting, but that she might be interested in Thomasy.
Mm.
But she, like, called dibs, girls.
Yeah.
Um, so embarrassed, Micah tries to change the subject before they're interrupted by the very loud and very terrified Uki. Um,
Mhm.
she was something else. She was like, we're not playing. Like, I'm gonna let you know
Yeah, she was, like,
now.
ready all the
Like,
time.
you will not believe what I just did. I'm gonna tell you.
Yeah. She had just,
Um,
like, a great confidence about her, for sure.
she really did. She was fun. She was a lot of fun. I could definitely see how she could be a lot.
Yeah, but,
Someone who's
like, tells
also
it
a
like it
lot.
is, you
Yeah.
know?
I get it. So Yuki, while she was on her adventure to recover the bike, finds not only the strange polar bear, but other bizarre moving animals. And following close behind them, she's, tracing them, she discovers their alien spaceship of meat. It's like a
Mhm.
meat ship.
Yep.
Really gross. And there's these tentacles that extend from the ship and latch onto their new human victim, which was a nice fisherman from Pang,
Mhm.
and sucks out his blood. And no one deserved that except for the cop.
Yeah.
So, poor guy.
Yeah.
And Uki is then attacked by a polar bear cub, which is cute and terrifying at the same time. She slices it with one of her like really cool knives that she keeps
Mhm.
on her, and she runs away covered in blood. And this is blood that she can't get off. Remember?
Yeah.
And when she storms the party, she explains to everyone that there are aliens coming. And in an attempt to stay relevant and still burning with embarrassment, Micah absolutely lays into Yuki. She unleashes a torrent of incredibly harmful words in
Yeah.
the only way that like young girls can do.
Mhm.
She just like says all this terrible stuff, like digging up Yuki's whole life. And she's like,
Yeah.
what? Like, I'm trying to tell you that
Yeah,
there's
I'm trying to, like,
aliens.
save you from aliens right now.
I'm like, okay, well, let's table
Like, now
that.
we're fighting.
Let's table that because we do have some heavy stuff to deal with. But also, um, and then while this is happening, one of the aliens, now donning the gross police officer skin, bursts into the party. Not bursts, he just comes into the party.
Yeah.
Because that's what they do. They start slow to kind of
Yeah.
trick you until you look at them and you're like, that ain't right. Uh,
Yeah.
and everyone learns really quickly that the invasion is real and that Uki is not lying for attention. And we get some really cool chase scenes and find that Uki is a very innovative and clever survivalist. Like, she was really cool.
Mhm.
She was a good final girl. They're all final girls, but she was really cool. Um,
Mhm.
she's like, "I'm the bait. You're not allowed to be the bait." I was like, "Okay, hon, you get it."
Yeah.
Later, Micah tries to get some answers, and she asks Uki about the alien pretending not to be an alien, to which Uki responds, "Yeah, like an Inuk pretending not to be an Inuk," which
Mhm.
was a great diss.
Yeah.
You could see she was like, "Deserve that. I deserve."
Yeah, I was jerk earlier, you're right.
You're right. And it is clear to her friends how Micah is trying to separate herself from her culture, and become this modern woman. In an interview on Inuit Art Foundation titled Nyla Inuksuk on her new film Slashback, the director explains, in the end, it is a very personal project about what it means to be growing up in a contemporary world as an Indigenous woman. We are the children of residential school survivors dealing with shame in our identities as Indigenous people and dealing with our identities as young women. But of course, I had to throw some aliens in there to make it fun,
Mhm.
which again, I love. I feel like we would have been best friends. She does all the things that I love about film.
Yeah.
It's like, here, it has this really great message. It's very important. And also,
Mhm.
there's some cool aliens.
Yeah.
So
Cool
the rest of
flesh monsters, for
monster
sure.
and like the fidgety, like
Oh, yeah.
so good. The rest of the film pits the young girls against the Edgar suit wearing aliens as they embrace the power of an Inuk woman, not someone to be messed with. And they find a love for their hometown and decide to save Pang. Because what would this place be without them? And also because no one stands a chance against an Inuk woman. And when they have that moment, it's really sweet and well earned. So they gather weapons, new, old, and traditional, and more. They create plans of action and they fight the invading force. They also put on traditional makeup
Yeah.
because they're like that's when they're like, "You don't mess with an Inuk woman."
Mhm.
That was just like super empowering and fun.
Yeah.
It's like that's rad. You get into like your war paint and you get to go fight aliens. It's the same excitement that I had when I was watching Attack the Block.
Yeah.
It's
Where
like
they're like, "We're not gonna run, we're gonna fight back."
yeah. Yes.
Mhm.
And in the because they know this place, you know? Uh,
Mhm.
the look of the monsters is really well done. It's simple. It's just a talented actor that can move their body in not quite human way, while wearing a person mask. So it's not like
Mhm.
super over the top. But unlike the thing, these monsters are not good at pretending, only approaching slowly and quietly to disarm the prey before turning back into their more comfortable position, which is like on all fours and like scuttling
Yeah.
towards you, and, like, sometimes, like, backwards, it's, like, grudgy, um,
Yeah.
and you're
Just
like,
doing
"Oh,
stuff with the body that you're like, "Oh, no.
you shouldn't be able to do that."
Why your face look like that?"
But you see all the tentacles inside their face, like, oof.
Mhm.
It is super silly.
Yeah.
Like, the effects are very silly, but it's so fun because you just see him like and you're like,
Yeah.
"No! No! Don't
Yeah.
do that with your body and your face, Edgar." Um, and, other than the super fun and eerie look of the monsters, there is so much to love, including its location, the folklore, the soundtrack, and of course, the girls. So I wanna get
Mhm.
into a bit about, like, the making of and all these different parts that made this film really unique and fun and just an amazing time. Right? So the
Yeah.
location and the community played a very big part in the creation of the film. In every part of the film process, the community and culture seep through both in front of and behind the camera. And Inuk cast the young actors by conducting acting workshops locally. Her and an arts organization that supports performing artists in Nunavut called Kagiavut. I'm gonna say that's what it is. Kagiavut. Again, if someone speaks this natively, let me know because it doesn't stick here when I write it out. Helped equip the girls with headshots and videos because they were like learning, like not learning to act, but they were developing their acting skills while they were doing it. Which, like, when you're watching, they are not the best of actors, right? They're not fully seasoned, but there's
Yeah,
so
they're
much
also kids, yeah.
yeah, and they're kids, and I think, like, there's such intentionality in, like, casting them specifically and being able to use this film to give them those opportunities is really awesome. And they're
Yeah.
not bad, like, you still get very invested in them, they're fun,
Mhm.
they clearly having a good time, and I think that's great. The girls also helped in developing the fuller story, from short to feature because it started as a short and they offered their own insight into the characters and their
Oh,
experiences.
that's very cool.
Yeah, so it was kind of like this group process where, like, they'd offer up some suggestions or thoughts, and they were able
Mhm.
to modify it for that.
That's
Um,
awesome.
no, it's so rad. Inuk also said one of the highlights was actually working with the community of Pong. So the other highlight, she says in this interview, was getting to know the community, the people that we met, the people that were on our crew, the people whose houses we lived in, who drove our boats and cars and all these other things. It wouldn't have been possible if there wasn't a chance to film this in Pong, and we had to film in Iqaluit, which she said was like really hard to get to, like even just traveling, and it was kind of expensive too. So there was like you had to be really intentional about it. And having the film take place in Pong is a point of pride for director Inuk. In that interview with the Inuit Art Foundation, she explains the challenges but also successes of the shooting location, saying, "We started filming in June of 2019. It's where my nephews are from, and so it was great to see family in Pang. There's 24 hours sunlight."
Yeah.
Because it's an Arctic summer. I was like, "What? It's just never not sun?"
Yeah.
Honestly, sounds really lovely. It wasn't the lighting conditions that we were used to, obviously, and the whole movie takes place over the course of a day. And so when we're doing that in Arctic summer, it's a different kind of thing than when you're working with a movie in any other location, because you're having to keep on reminding yourself that it never really gets dark. And you have to remind the audience in other ways that time is passing,
Yeah.
um, which is like kind of like a fun problem to have.
Yeah.
And obviously, you don't have the money to be like Jordan Peele in Nope and make it nighttime. So,
Yeah.
but it was still like we knew it
Yeah.
was the same day. We knew time was passing.
Yeah.
Um, the film had a number of challenges because of the location, though, including where folks were staying. So, Inuk mentions that there was a housing crisis, that there's not enough homes for the residents. So, to add in an extra 60 to 70 people was not feasible. We had to live in the high school for a full 2 months. We had to set up kitchens and have 3 meals a day produced for 60 people out of those kitchens. But it was really, really important to me that we didn't just come in and leave, that we really embraced the fact that we're in this place and hunkered down and just tried to make it the best we could within this infrastructure that we had to create ourselves because it doesn't exist in the community. And I'll mention it and soon, but she kind of hoped that the impact of this film would then continue
Yeah.
on in helping the community.
Uh-huh.
But furthermore, the soundtrack is created by the amazingly talented and hypnotizing duo Hallucination. There's Tim Tool, it's with a two,
Mm.
Toolman Hill and Aaron Bear Witness, who make up the group formerly known as A Tribe Called Red. And when they were A Tribe Called Red, Inuk had worked with them for an interactive virtual reality music video. And when she began thinking of the film, she reached out. Um, she mentioned something like, they were always asking, like, when are we going to tag team again? Like, when are we gonna meet up?
Yeah.
Well, if it's for my film, then it's gonna happen now.
Yeah.
They were like, "Oh, cool, bet." And then they were confirmed before the script was finished. So,
Nice.
and it's great because they really did. They have like, definitely look them up and look up their like in their plans for this film, because there's like one song that I can't find because it was just made for this film. It's the credits, and it's a
Oh, okay.
remix of like a traditional song or a song by another band, and they have this person performing, and I'm totally blanking on their name, but it was really amazing song. I'm like,
Yeah.
I want it in real life. So highly recommend, definitely check them out. And ultimately, I think what we find with a film like Slashback is the beauty of new stories on screen. Okay,
Yeah.
this is why we're not doing the thing. Sorry, John. I
Yeah.
don't think we've ever done John Carpenter, and I don't think we will.
Yeah.
Um,
That's okay.
which is fine. Other people will, and I think
Yeah.
they, because yeah, someone should talk about them. But the biggest thing is that we should celebrate these voices, these stories, and these creators. And it's a delight to get a glimpse into a culture that we don't often hear about. Me
Yeah.
personally, I don't. So, except for on my TikTok, because I
Yeah.
like all those artists, I get a lot of that.
Yeah.
But I really appreciate this film, and I hope that you watch it and learn from it as well. And for director Inuk, the film was an absolute treat to create. And she said, just to get to the point where you can be taking on and directing a feature, being up there at a certain point during filming in Pong, in the beautiful community where we shot and we're walking around, at a certain point, I was like, oh, wow, I'm actually doing this thing. I was working with a bunch of 14-year-old girls and thinking about myself at that age and just how much I loved horror movies. And for me to be up there, I was really doing what I wanted to do when I was a kid. Um,
Mm,
and that love and passion certainly comes through and will hopefully
mhm.
impact the young actors who are also participating, right? Because now they have this and they can get more options. It's just like how we got Rhymes for Young Ghouls, and then she went and did Reservation Dogs. Like,
Yeah.
it's so cool. And also knowing how much the community and culture impacted the creation of it elevated the film for me greatly. And the director
Mhm.
agreed, saying, I hope the impacts that we had on the community were positive. I'm so excited to be able to go back with the finished project and to share it with the community that made it possible. When I see myself represented on screens in ways that I haven't seen myself before, it's meaningful. Even when it's something silly like a Star Wars movie, it's important, I think, to feel seen and represented. I hope this movie
Mhm.
does that for the community. Um, super agree. Like, I
Yeah.
also hope that I wanna see more indigenous horror. That's what I'm putting out there to the ether. And just, 2 side facts that I found while I was writing up the script. The team designed a fake polar bear costume for the actor who did all the monsters, Troy James, uh,
Mhm.
to wear and perform as the bear, because the director had a really, great appreciation for the thing's practical effects, and so she really wanted to give it a shot, but the look on camera was a bit odd, so they went with a CGI bear, and I just really wish I could see the that
Original, just to, like, see what it looked like, yeah.
it would've kind of been fun, but I totally get it. We have the technology. There's no shame in that. Also, the square dancing is a real thing. So apparently, Inuk filmed a documentary in Penn. That's how she was more like really familiar with it. Was she was already there. She had documented the square
Mhm.
dancers.
Oh, very cool.
And like the whole community, but it was like, so that's like a real thing. So the fact that the whole town was like, "We're going to the square dancing," and we're like, "Where are all the adults?" Like that's a
Yeah.
big deal. They really just go
Go
off.
dance. Yeah.
So
That's so fun.
yeah.
Yeah, this is such a fun movie. I and it's so real too. Like the impact, like I don't know what the long-term impact is overall, but like the having, representation is so important cuz like especially since this movie was about like finding yourself an identity, they're
Mhm.
like giving that to more people who can see the movie and see themselves on screen and like that's a big deal.
Yeah, and feel empowered by that, like, because that's
Mhm.
what happens with Micah, like, she went through that whole thing, and in the end, she's, like, going out hunting with her dad and pushing that forward, and then using that to bring their culture and traditions into the present, like, she gets, like, the food
Yeah.
kinda thing, which, just showed, like, "Oh, we can blend this, like, I can be proud of this
Mhm.
and, still keep to tradition in a way that, like, is beneficial to me and
Mhm.
my age."
Oh yeah, there's like like pride there too that like can honestly like people probably see themselves in the movie and are like, I can learn to accept myself and be proud of stuff too.
Mhm.
So yeah, it was cute. I really enjoyed it. My autism always has that little thing with the acting, but I got over it and I was like, you're so right, it's so good. You're but I was just like, but it was, you know, not
Yeah.
everyone's brain does what mine does, and
It's
I think
not
they
the
did an
typical
amazing job.
pass nonsense, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah. No, it was worth it, and it was really good. In the end, they just did like it was just so fun to like watch them grow throughout. I was
Yeah,
happy.
and put on
Yeah,
that makeup, and they were like, "Alright,
yeah. I'm gonna
I got
go
this
kick some
cool
butt.
staff that's like" oh, it's so cool.
Yeah, it was just a really fun time, and I think it's also like one of those films too, where it's like it was scary, but like not so scary that like you couldn't show it to younger audiences too.
Mhm,
So like you
mhm.
could definitely show it to a group of like 14-year-olds and not have to be like so terrified they're gonna have like the worst nightmares of their lives. You know what I mean? Like it's a good like gateway horror film too, in that like it wasn't so unbelievably scary that like kids could enjoy it. So I know we always advocate for horror for children. I think this
Yeah,
is like on the list of like if you're in your early adolescence, you could probably enjoy this movie without too much scare. Um,
yeah, that's a good point. I might show this to the nibblings then.
mhm.
I'm
Yeah,
interested.
yeah. Maybe show them the cover of what the skin monster looks like,
Oh, yeah, so they're
just to
prepared.
gauge. But
Like,
but
"Is this cool? Okay, we'll wait a
because
few
it's
years."
like, but they do a good job like not focusing like so heavily on showing that like they are
Yeah.
scary, but like it's it does still feel like, this is young. It's, like, for kids a little
Yeah,
bit in that
it's
way,
summer
so
camp for sure.
yeah, for sure. So maybe but definitely show them the cover because I was scared of the skin monsters
That's really
as a
valid,
grown
you're
adult
right.
just to see. Um,
That's so real.
you'll have to you'll have to let me know. I'm interested to know if it does
Yeah,
scare
for
them.
sure. Yeah.
Um, because, like, okay, this is very tangent, but I used to get scared of, like, Wishbone, like the
Oh,
show
yeah,
Wishbone,
that's
which is,
that's
like, not that scary, but they showed, like, anything in, like, the dark that came out that was, like, a monster. I was
mhm.
like, nightmares. I had many nightmares about the show
Yeah.
Wishbone when I was a kid,
Like,
like,
I
things
couldn't
which
even
are not
see
scary, so I don't know.
the intro to Are You Afraid of the Dark? Just the one
Yeah,
creak swing, I was like, "I'm out. I'm
yeah.
out." So, totally real, totally real.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
will not torture the children. I will
yeah.
ask them,
Yeah, but maybe
show
they'll
them
be
what
like, "Ooh,
is
that
it?
looks cool."
Yeah.
Um